As the clock struck 7 p.m., laughter filled the air, but my heart raced with dread. My husband stood to make a toast, champagne in hand, and I felt the world, surprised, tilt. "Here's to new beginnings," he said, his gaze drifting away from me and landing on the woman I once called my friend. In that moment, the truth sliced through the laughter like a knife. He was leaving me for her. I watched as the weight of betrayal settled into the room, shattering our family in an instant. My name is Marissa. This is the moment I learned love can be as cruel as it is beautiful. The gasps from my family echoed around the room as if the very air had turned to glass, fragile and ready to shatter. I couldn't focus on the laughter of the guests who still clutched their drinks, oblivious to the angry storm brewing in my heart. George's words hung in the air, a fog of confusion that obscured everything I thought I understood about my life. I could see Lydia's eyes widen with surprise, her mouth moving silently as if trying to form the right words to console me. I felt a strange combination of anger and desperate disbelief boiling within me, and yet all I could do was stand there, rooted to the spot, listening to the unsaid fill the silence where love used to reside. In that moment, all I could think about was how George had taken a beautiful evening and turned it into a nightmare. I could hardly recognize the man I had loved for nearly a decade as he stood there with that other woman, his face alight with a melancholic joy that felt foreign to me. My thoughts shifted to Zoe, who stood to the side, her hands clasped tightly together, betraying her own internal struggle. Her expression reflected a blend of sympathy and anger, indignation, and I knew she felt as torn as I did, caught in the crossfire of a battle that felt so personal and yet so public. As George continued, I finally found my voice, though it trembled on the edge of desperation. "What are you doing?" I managed to choke out, the question directed not just at him, but at the entire situation. I thought about the years we spent together, the dreams we had woven, and the life I had envisioned. It was almost as if I was watching someone else's tragedy unfold before me, a surreal play in which I was both actor and audience. I could see the confusion in George's eyes as he faltered, perhaps realizing for the first time the weight of his betrayal. Lydia stepped forward, her maternal instincts kicking in. "Marissa, let's step outside for a moment," she urged gently, but all I could feel was the nervous, suffocating weight of embarrassment. I wanted to scream and curse, but instead, I found myself sad numbly as she guided me toward the garden. The cool night air was a stark contrast to the heated atmosphere inside. My nervous heart raced, and my mind was a desperate whirlpool of thoughts and emotions. Once outside, Lydia enveloped me in a tight embrace, a small comfort in the chaos. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, though I could hear the tremor in her own voice. I wanted to believe her, to find solace in her words, but fearful doubts crept in. George's betrayal was not just a matter of love. It felt like an unraveling of my entire identity. The woman he had chosen to stand beside him was someone I had trusted, and the thought of it twisted my insides. "Why didn't I see this coming, Mom?" I asked, pulling back to look into her eyes. "I should have known." The tears fell freely now, hot against my cheeks as I let the truth of the moment sink in. She shook her head,
her brows furrowing as if searching for an explanation that simply didn't exist. "Sometimes we don't see what we don't want to believe," she replied softly. Thomas emerged from the house, his brow furrowed as he surveyed the scene. "What happened in there?" he asked, concern etched across his face. I could hear the crack in his voice, a man trying to reconcile a father's instinct to protect with the reality unfolding before him. I could feel him grasping for words, trying to provide stability in a moment filled with chaos. "Dad, I don't think I can do this,"
I admitted, the weight of my pain crashing down on me like a wave. "We'll figure it out, Marissa," he hopeful reassured me, his hand resting firmly on my shoulder. "You're not alone in this." I wished I could believe him, but the truth was that fearful had already crept in, stealing away my sense of security. As I stood there, the world beyond the garden felt distant, as if I was submerged underwater, the sounds of laughter muffled and far away. It was in that solitude that I found a confident flicker of determination. I had been blindsided, yes, but I was not going to be a passive victim of someone else's choices. I took a deep breath, steadying myself against the flood of emotion threatening to sweep me away. "I need to talk to him," I finally said, my voice stronger than I felt. With a determined nod from my parents, we stepped back into the house, and I found my gaze landing on George again. The other woman was gone, but the remnants of his betrayal lingered like a shadow. I felt the eyes of the guests on me, as if they were waiting for the next act in this tragic play. But I was not an actress rehearsing lines. I was Marissa, and I was confident, ready to confront the reality that had been thrust upon me. With every step toward him, I felt my heartbeat quicken, a mixture of fear and confidence propelling me forward. "George," I said, my voice steady as I approached. The room fell silent, all eyes on us as I faced the man who had shattered my world. "We need to talk about this." The weight of my words hung in the air, and for the first time that evening, I felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe I could reclaim my narrative, even if it meant rewriting the story I thought I knew. The moment I uttered those words, the tension in the room thickened, akin to the oppressive humidity before a summer storm. George's expression morphed from surprise to a mix of confusion and apprehension. It was as though he hadn't expected me to confront him so openly, especially not in front of our closest friends and family. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts, my heart racing as I struggled to maintain my composure. "You can't just walk away from all of this, George. We owe it to ourselves to confront what's been left unsaid." The murmurs among our guests intensified, a low hum of nervous speculation and concern. I caught a glimpse of Lydia's worried face, her brow furrowed, while my father exchanged uneasy glances with Thomas. Zoe, standing at the edge of the crowd, wore a look of disbelief mixed with anger, as if she couldn't comprehend how her brother-in-law had allowed the evening to spiral so completely out of control. This was not just about us anymore. It was about family, and our shared history began to feel like a fragile tapestry, fraying at the edges. George shifted, his posture rigid as he finally broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "Marissa, I didn't mean for it to come out this way. I just thought—" He paused, searching for the right words, and I could see the internal battle raging within him. "I thought I could finally be honest." "Honesty?" I echoed, incredulous. "This
isn't honesty, George. It's a betrayal, a public dissection of our marriage that you chose to stage like a theatrical performance." My heart raced with the weight of my words, and I felt a swell of sad vulnerability crash over me. How could he have reduced our life together to a series of grievances laid bare for all to witness? "I'm sorry," he replied, his voice cracking, as if the weight of my anger had physically struck him. "But I've been carrying this for so long. I thought you'd understand if I could just put it all out there." He stepped closer, almost pleading with me through his gaze, but the distance between us felt monumental. "Understand?" I repeated, the bitterness creeping into my tone. "You think I could ever understand why you choose to humiliate me like this in front of everyone we know?" My fingers trembled, and I clasped them together, desperate to anchor myself in this torrent of emotion. "You've been keeping secrets, and now it's all out in the open." "But at what cost?" George ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration. "I wanted to lift the weight off my chest, Marissa. I thought sharing it would allow us to heal." His eyes, usually so full of warmth, now reflected uncertainty and regret. "But I see now that I've only made things worse." "Worse?" I sarcastically scoffed, incredulous at his naivete. "This isn't just worse, George. You've shattered the foundation of what we built together. You've forced me to question everything we had." My voice trembled, and tears threatened to spill over as I tried to maintain my composure. "You've put everyone in an awkward position, and our marriage is now public fodder." "Maybe it needed to be," he countered, but there was no conviction in his words. It was almost as if he were trying to convince himself as much as me. "Perhaps we were both pretending, and I just couldn't pretend anymore." I could feel the room closing in around us, the eyes of our friends and family watching closely, waiting to see how this unraveling would play out. Would they side with me, or would they sympathize with George's plight? I felt nervous, raw, as I desperate clung to the remnant of my dignity. "Pretending? This isn't a game, George. This is our life." Zoe suddenly stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension with fierce determination. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to air your grievances like a dirty laundry list. You didn't just hurt Marissa, you hurt all of us by dragging us into this." "Zoe, please," George began, but she wasn't finished. "No, you need to hear this. You don't get to throw a grenade into our family and act surprised when we all recoil. You made your choice, and now we all have to deal with the fallout." Her eyes flashed with a mix of rage and hurt, and I could see how my sister's protective instincts flared into action. "Do you really think this was easy for me?" George shot back defensively. "Help us?" I interjected, my voice rising. "You think tearing down the trust we had would help? You think exposing our weaknesses in front of everyone would bring us closer?" Just then, Lydia stepped forward, her maternal instincts kicking in as she reached for my arm. "Honey, let's take a breath here." Her gentle, soothing voice was a gentle reminder that even in chaos, I was not alone. We need to take a step back and reflect on what's truly happening. I turned to her, feeling the warmth of her touch. "Mom, how can I possibly reflect on this? My whole life feels like it's desperate." "We've all made mistakes, Marissa, and it's vital that we don't lose sight of what matters," she said, her sad eyes glistening with unshed tears. We need to find a way to talk through this as a family, not as adversaries. Thomas stepped in, his calm voice steady and calm. Marissa, George, this is an opportunity, albeit a painful one, to understand each other's feelings. It's a hopeful chance to rebuild. I met George's gaze, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. Maybe this wasn't just about the two of us. Maybe it was about all of us learning to communicate, to express our nervous fears and failures openly. I can't promise I won't be hurt by this, I said softly, but I'm hopeful to try. George nodded slowly. Hope creeping back into his expression. I want that too. I want us to heal, even if it means facing uncomfortable truths. As the tension in the room began to ease, I realized that this was a turning point, a moment that could lead us to understanding and perhaps even forgiveness. The journey ahead would be tough, but we would face it together if only we could find the strength to be honest with ourselves and each other. In this chaotic moment, I felt a glimmer of resilience ignite within me, a quiet resolve to navigate this tangled web of emotions and come out stronger on the other side. I had no idea what the future held, but I was ready to step forward into the unknown, hand in hand with my family, determined to reclaim my narrative. As I looked around at my family, I felt a hopeful flicker of hope. We could emerge from this turmoil, and though the road would be fraught with challenges, I was confident, resolute. Our story wasn't over, it was merely hopeful, beginning anew. If you enjoyed this journey through Marissa's turbulent emotional landscape and wish to follow her story further, consider subscribing for more updates and chapters as they unfold. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the chaos of emotions swirling around the room. George's toast had peeled back layers I didn't even know were there, revealing truths that felt both liberating and suffocating at the same time. My heart raced as I faced the aftermath, knowing I had to confront the unspoken words that clung in the air like a dense fog. My family stood frozen, their expressions a mix of shock and pity, and I realized this was my moment to confident reclaim my voice. I turned to George, whose gaze was averted, and confident the strength to ask the question that had been desperate, eating at me since his speech. Why didn't you tell me, George? Why did it have to come out this way? He met my eyes then, and I could see the turmoil reflected in his. The weight of his silence was heavy, and as he opened his mouth to respond, I felt my mother's hand on my shoulder, a gentle reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Lydia's presence soothed the raw edges of my vulnerability, though I could still see the worry etched on her brow. I turned to her, hoping for some comfort, but she was just as stunned as I was. In that moment, I wanted to share my pain with her, to let her see how deeply George's words had cut. But the years of silence between us made it hard to reach out. Marissa, George finally spoke, his sad voice trembling. I thought I was protecting you. I didn't want to hurt you with the truth, so I buried it. But it festered, and now... His voice trailed off, leaving a gaping void filled with unsaid apologies. I never meant for things to spiral out of control like this. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, a mix of anger and sadness. How could he think hiding the truth was protecting me? I wanted to desperately scream, to let my desperate anguish pour out. But instead, I just stood there, caught between my love for him and the betrayal he had laid bare. Zoe stepped forward, breaking the silence that had settled uncomfortably between us. "You don't get to decide what's best for someone else, George. You owe Marissa the honesty she deserves." Her voice held a firmness I admired, and it reminded me that I had family who would fight for me, even when I felt too lost to fight for myself. I could see the tension in George's shoulders as he took in Zoe's words. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, clearly wrestling with the repercussions of his actions. "Maybe it's time we all started being honest," Lydia interjected, her sad voice steady yet laced with pain. "We've let too many secrets linger, and it's time to confront them." The tension in the room crackled as we all exchanged glances, each of us carrying unspoken truths that threatened to surface. It was clear that the revelations of the night were only the beginning. I wondered what else lay buried beneath our carefully maintained facades. My father, Thomas, who had remained silent until now, finally cleared his throat. "We've all made mistakes, George, but it's how we learn from them that matters." His gentle wisdom seemed to hang in the air, a reminder that healing was possible, but only if we were willing to face our demons. I felt a hopeful flicker of hope igniting within me, yet it was accompanied by an fearful undercurrent of fear. What if we weren't ready for the truth? I glanced around the room, my family's faces reflecting my own turmoil. The weight of expectation was palpable. "I need to know where we all stand," I said, my confidence firming as I took a step forward. "I won't allow this moment to pass without addressing it." Zoe and Lydia nodded in agreement, their unwavering support solidifying my resolve. I could feel George's presence beside me, a reminder of the love we once shared, but that love felt fragile now, like glass teetering on the edge of a table. "I made mistakes too," I continued, looking directly at George. "I didn't always communicate my needs. And I let angry resentment build up. I thought everything would just work itself out, but it didn't. We need to be real with each other, or we'll lose what little we have left." The vulnerability in my voice caught me off guard, but I pressed on. This was my moment to reclaim my narrative, to show my family that I was more than just a victim of circumstance. George took a deep breath, as if my words gave him permission to lower his guard. "I know I haven't been the partner you deserve," he admitted, his sad eyes filled with regret. "I've been afraid of what admitting my mistakes would mean for us, but I can't keep hiding, not anymore." The hopeful sincerity in his voice resonated within me, stirring something deep that I had thought was buried. I realized then that honesty, while painful, was a hopeful step toward rebuilding our trust. As the conversation unfolded, I felt the atmosphere shift. Each family member began to share their own struggles, revealing cracks in their own foundations. Lydia spoke of her fears about aging, while Thomas opened up about his regrets over missed opportunities. Even Zoe shared moments of insecurity, things I had never known she carried. With every confession, I felt a weight lifting, the burdens of unspoken words floating into the air like wisps of smoke. In that crowded room, we were no longer just a family fractured by secrets. We were a collective of souls seeking understanding and connection. While the pain of betrayal lingered, I could feel the ember of hope flickering brightly, fueled by the willingness to confront our truths together. As I gazed into George's eyes, I saw a glimmer of what could be, a chance for redemption, for growth, for healing. I took his hand, and we stood united, ready to face whatever came next, together.
As George held my hand, the warmth of our connection felt like a lifeline amidst the chaos of the evening. I could sense the weight of the unspoken truths hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. I turned to face our guests, their expressions a mix of shock, nervous concern, and, in some cases, pity. The laughter that had filled the room moments before was now replaced by an uncomfortable silence that echoed the uncertainty of our relationship. It was a strange juxtaposition. Our anniversary celebration had been reduced to a raw unveiling of emotions, and I found myself torn between anger and compassion for George. In the quiet, I caught a glimpse of Lydia, her sad face, her surprised eyes wide. My mother had always been my guiding star, but tonight I felt as though we were both adrift in a storm. I could see her resolve falter as she processed what had just transpired. I wanted to reach out to assure her that I was okay, but the truth was I wasn't sure I was. My sister Zoe shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her brow furrowed in concern. She had always been my protector, a fierce advocate for my happiness. The depth of her love was palpable, but I feared she too would feel helpless in the face of this unraveling. George took a step forward, breaking the silence that had enveloped us all. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said, his voice shaky yet resolute. "I thought that by sharing my feelings, I could somehow lighten the burden we've both been carrying. I wanted to anger, to demand how he could think that airing our private struggles in front of everyone would be a good idea. But instead, I found myself watching him, trying to, surprised, decipher the man I thought I knew. 'Is this how you wanted to celebrate our love?' I managed to ask, each word surprised, laced with disbelief. The pain in my chest tightened as I processed the reality of the situation. I had imagined this evening as a joyful tribute to our years together, not a public dissection of our failures. The room held its breath, and for a moment, I felt like I was the only one breathing. "I thought I was being honest," he replied, running a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration and regret. "I wanted to acknowledge that we've both made mistakes, that we've strayed from who we were." His vulnerability was disarming. And I had to remind myself that this was the same man who had just unveiled our wounds for the world to see. I stepped back, feeling the sad weight of his words pressing against me like a heavy blanket. "Honesty is one thing, George, but this isn't how it should be done. This is my family, our friends. You've put us all in the middle of our fight." I sensed the tension shift, the air crackling with unspoken words and unresolved issues. I turned to my mother, seeking solace in her gaze, but her expression was one of sorrow mixed with understanding. "Marissa," she began softly, "sometimes we have to confront uncomfortable truths to move forward. I know this is hard, but it might be necessary." I blinked back tears, feeling the weight of her words. In the midst of my pain, I could see the glimmer of insight in her eyes, the wisdom of experience. "Maybe this is the beginning of something new," Zoe chimed in, her voice barely above a whisper. "You both deserve to be happy, even if it means facing the hard stuff first." I looked at her, and for the first time, I found a flicker of hope in the idea that perhaps this painful unveiling could lead to healing if we allowed it. As I took a deep breath, I realized that my heart ached not just for myself, but for George as well.
We had both lost sight of who we were in the pursuit of dreams that sometimes felt too heavy to bear. I had been so wrapped up in my own hurt, I had forgotten the man standing before me was hurting too, though in different ways. "George, we need to talk," I said, my confident voice steadier than I felt. "Not like this, not in front of everyone, but somewhere we can be honest without the pressure of an audience." I sensed a shift in his posture, an acknowledgement that maybe he had stepped too far. His shoulders relaxed slightly, and he nodded. A silent agreement between us to embark on this difficult journey together, even if it meant confronting our darkest moments. "Let's find a place where we can be ourselves," he suggested, a hint of relief washing over his features. I could see the gears turning in his mind as he contemplated the best way to navigate this rocky terrain we had found ourselves on. I glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of our friends and family who were trying their best to give us privacy in this public moment of chaos. Lydia's hand gripped Thomas's tightly, a silent show of support that reminded me that we were not alone. Even in the midst of our turmoil, there was hope surrounding us, and it was that love that would help us find our way back to each other. As I let George out of the room, I took a final look at the faces of those I cared about, recognizing that they too were part of this journey. Together, we would sift through the fragments of our brokenness, piecing together a hopeful new understanding of what love truly meant. The night was far from over, but I felt a tentative sense of hope blooming within me, the promise of renewal amidst the chaos of our shared truths. As I settled back into my seat, the quiet murmur of the guests faded into the background, leaving only the echoes of George's words hanging heavy in the air. Each syllable replayed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the chasm that had opened between us. I could feel the eyes of our friends and family, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and shock, weighing down on me like an unwanted cloak. My heart ached, not only for the betrayal, but also for the vulnerable moment we had all shared, which had somehow transformed into a painful spectacle. It was surreal to think that what should have been a joyous occasion had spiraled into a revelation of our collective failings. Lydia, sensing my turmoil, reached for my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Her warmth brought a flicker of comfort, reminding me that amidst this chaotic storm, I was not alone. I glanced at her, and for a fleeting moment, I could see the worry etched on her face. She had always been my confidant, the one person I could turn to when the world felt unbearably heavy. I could tell she was grappling with her own emotions, trying to process the shocking truths that had been laid bare. "Marissa," she whispered, her voice soft yet firm, "let's take a moment, just the three of us." I nodded, my gaze shifting to Zoe, who looked as though she was sad, fighting back tears. She had always been my little sister, the one who would laugh at my jokes even when they fell flat, and the one who would always stand by my side. I remembered the late-night conversations we had shared over cups of tea, where we would dream about our futures and how we believed love was supposed to conquer all. Now, I couldn't help but wonder how those dreams had slipped through our fingers. As we moved to a quieter corner of the room, George lingered near the bar, his shoulders hunched, as if the weight of his own confession had physically manifested. I tried to gather my thoughts, but they spiraled in every direction. My mind wrestled with the images of our life together, the laughter, the shared dreams, the plans for the future. How had everything shifted so drastically in one toast? My heart raced as I recalled the moments leading up to this, the small arguments we'd brushed off, the growing distance that had crept into our marriage. Each memory felt like a puzzle piece that, when put together, painted a picture I hadn't wanted to see. Zoe spoke first, her voice wavering as she looked between my mother and me. "I don't understand how he could do this to you, Marissa," she said, her eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You deserve so much better. We all saw the love you two had. It was real." Her words sparked something within me, a blend of happiness and sorrow. I had always wanted to protect her from the harsh realities of life, but here we were, confronting a darkness I never wanted her to witness. "Love can be complicated," Lydia interjected, her tone gentle yet steady. "Sometimes we hide our truths out of fear. Fear of hurting each other. Fear of losing what we have." I could see the weight of her own experiences reflected in her eyes, a silent acknowledgement of her own struggles with love and fidelity. I had watched her navigate through her own challenges with Thomas over the years, and now I felt the weight of her wisdom resting upon me. "I just wish he had told me." I finally found my voice, trembling as I spoke. "If he had just said something, anything, maybe we could have worked through it together." The ache in my chest felt insurmountable as the idea of lost possibilities seeped into my mind. What if George had reached out before it reached this breaking point? My heart ached for the time that had been wasted on silence, for the love that had dimmed but could have been reignited. As I spoke, Zoe wrapped her arms around me, pulling me into a warm embrace. "You're not alone in this, Marissa. We'll get through it together," she promised, her voice muffled against my shoulder. It was a moment of solidarity, a reminder that despite the upheaval, family could still anchor me in turbulent waters. I closed my eyes, letting her comfort envelop me like a protective shield against the chaos swirling around us. When I opened my eyes again, my gaze fell back on George, still at the bar, his head bowed as if in penance. A part of me longed to confront him, to demand answers, but another part held back, realizing that there would be time for that later. For now, I hopefully needed to focus on healing, not just for myself, but for the family that surrounded me. Thomas and Lydia approached, their expressions a mix of concern and determination. "Let's take this one step at a time," Thomas said, his voice steady. "You're not alone in this, Marissa. We'll face whatever comes next together." His calm reassurance felt like a balm to my wounded heart, and I took a deep breath, allowing hope to creep back in. As the evening wore on, the guests began to drift, their conversations filled with hushed tones and lingering glances. I could feel the fabric of our family's dynamics shifting, woven together with threads of loyalty and love, albeit frayed. I, confident, resolved then and there that I would not let George's betrayal define me. I wanted to learn from this pain, to confidently rise above it and emerge stronger than before. As I glanced around the room, I felt a stirring within me, a hopeful desire to reach out, to share this story of heartache and resilience with others who might find themselves in similar situations. If my journey could inspire even one person to confront their own truths, to seek healing in their own lives, then it would all be worth it. I squeezed Zoe's hand and nodded at my parents, an unspoken pact forming between us. "Let's take this journey together," I said softly, determination swelling within me. "Our story doesn't end here. We can still find a way to heal." And in that moment, amidst the remnants of shattered dreams, I felt a hopeful flicker of hope ignite, illuminating the path ahead. I invite you to share your own stories of resilience and healing, for we all possess the strength to rise from our struggles and seek the light once again. Together, we can forge connections through our experiences, finding solace in the shared journey of love and growth. As the applause faded, a heavy silence enveloped the room, each guest seemingly grappling with their own versions of the truth that had just been laid bare. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and sorrow as George stood there, his expression unreadable. The laughter that had once filled the air was replaced by whispers, and I could sense the weight of their gazes, each one a reminder of the betrayal that had just shattered what I thought was a solid foundation. My heart raced as I scanned the room, searching for familiar faces, for comfort in the chaos. Lydia, my mother, was the first to break the stillness. She stood, her eyes wide with shock and a hurt expression on her face that mirrored my own. My father, Thomas, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his brow furrowed as he processed the unexpected turn of events. Zoe, my sister, was the last to react, her lips pressed tightly together, as if fighting against her own wave of emotions. I could feel their concern wash over me, but it did little to quell the angry storm brewing inside. "Marissa," George finally spoke, his nervous voice steady but strained. "I didn't mean for it to come out like this." Each word felt like a dagger, cutting deeper into the heart of the matter. I opened my mouth to respond, but no sound emerged. I was at a desperate loss for words, my mind racing with nervous confusion and pain. How could this have happened? How had we arrived at this moment? With a deep breath, I forced myself to take a step forward. "What did you mean, George?" My confident voice was stronger than I felt, but it was laced with the hurt that threatened to engulf me. "Did you think this was the right time for your revelations?" The question hung in the air, a nervous challenge I wasn't sure I was prepared to follow through with, but I needed answers. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, Zoe interjected, her aggressive voice rising above the tension. "You owe her more than this, George. This isn't just a game." Her protective nature surged forth, and it felt like a hopeful lifeline in that moment, the strength of family binding us together as I faced my husband. "Zoe, please," George replied, frustration creeping into his tone. "This isn't a game to me. I'm tired of pretending everything's okay when it's not. I thought being honest was the right path." "Honest?" I echoed, sarcastic. "Incredulous? You think this was honesty? This was a betrayal, George." My heart raced as the tears began to form, blurring my vision. Each accusation felt like a weight pressing down on my chest, and I struggled to breathe under the pressure of it all. Lydia stepped forward, her maternal instincts kicking in. "Maybe we should all take a breath and calm down. Emotions are running high," she said gently, though her voice quivered with concern. "Let's discuss this privately." But I shook my head. No, Mom, this is my life. Confident, I deserve to know everything in front of our family, not hidden away behind closed doors. The confidence in my voice surprised even me, but deep down, I knew I could not retreat. I had to face this storm head on. As I stood there, grappling with the chaos around me, I felt a surge of clarity. This moment, painful as it was the beginning of something new. I had spent too long silencing my own voice, trying to maintain a semblance of peace, when deep down, I was drowning in confusion. I could feel Zoe's hand on my shoulder, a reassuring reminder that I was not alone. "Then let's talk," George said, his expression softening just a fraction, though I could still see the flicker of regret in his eyes. "Let's lay everything out then." "Fine," I replied, my nervous heart pounding. "Tell me what you've been hiding. Tell me everything." As he began to speak, words tumbled out like marbles rolling down a hill, each one revealing a part of him I hadn't recognized. He spoke of insecurities and the pressures of marriage that had weighed heavily on his heart, of moments he felt unseen and unheard. I listened, my nervous heart battling between understanding and disbelief. Every confession peeled back layers of his soul, showing me glimpses of a man who was lost, not necessarily a villain, but a complex figure caught in a web of his own making. Meanwhile, the family dynamics shifted as Lydia and Thomas exchanged worried glances, both nervous, unsure of how to process the unfolding drama. Zoe remained a constant presence by my side, her grip reassuring as she stood witness to our unraveling story. As George shared his truth, I found myself reflecting on my own role in our marriage. Had I contributed to his feelings of isolation? Had I been so wrapped up in my own world that I had overlooked his struggles? The realization was like a punch to my gut, and I took a deep breath, preparing for the next step in this painful journey. When he finished, silence enveloped us once more. I looked into his eyes, searching for remnants of the man I had fallen in love with. "You're telling me this now because you want to fix things?" My nervous trembled, every syllable steeped in uncertainty. "I don't know if I can fix it, Marissa," he admitted, his honesty disarming. "But I want to try. I want us to have a hopeful chance to rebuild what we lost." I weighed his words carefully, knowing that my response would shape our future. Each heartbeat echoed the importance of this moment, the choice between forgiveness and moving forward. The nervous path ahead was uncertain, but perhaps within this fracture, there was an opportunity for healing.